Hi there. Hey, guess who's coming to dinner? Any guess? Well, I'll tell you. Strained relationships, conflict, past hurts, and even current attitudes are coming to your Thanksgiving or your Christmas or holiday dinner. But guess what? You don't have to allow it to ruin the time that you have with your family, and you certainly don't have to allow it to ruin your holidays. We're going to share on today's episode of Stress Talk Live with Marcyline 5 steps to rebuild family bonds for a joyous and relaxed holiday season. And we're going to get to that in just one moment. Hi there. Welcome to Stress Talk with Marceline. This is where we help women over 40 to be healthier, yes, healthier through strategic stress management and solution focused self care. I'm Marceline Bailey and I am your host for today. I'm a little tired today. I've been in class all weekend, beginning on Friday, um, yesterday, as well as all day today. So I am a little tired. So I hope you'll excuse my energy or lack thereof. It is not intentional, but I do have an exciting announcement that I'm going to share with you at the beginning of the year. It's going to be a little minute, but at the beginning of the year, I have something to share with you regarding what I am studying and why and how it will impact you. So, first and foremost, please make sure you follow ML Bailey Consultants on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. This is where I share a lot of great information about lowering your stress levels and boosting your energy, particularly for women over 40. Also, we are going to begin our annual Get Through the Holidays Without Losing It series. It's like I always call it an experience. And yes, this year it will be an experience because this year, every day for 30 days, you're going to get a video tip from me of how you can find your way through the holiday season without stressing out, without losing it, without feeling like you want to pull your hair out. In order to participate and get through the holidays without losing it this year, you're going to need to sign up. And you can do so by subscribing to the newsletter. Now, tomorrow is the last day. Tomorrow is the last day to sign up. So, if you miss the deadline and you still want to sign up, you can just shoot me an email. Just shoot me an email if you missed the deadline and you still want to sign up for Get Through the Holidays Without Losing It. But make sure if you are on my list, you've received an invitation. So make sure you sign up because it's going to be a lot of fun. 30 days, 30 messages, 30 activities to help you to get through the holidays without losing it. Last but not least, always take a look at my website at mlbaileyconsultants.com. So, what are we talking about today? I'm just going to jump right into it because I have a lot of juicy information, a lot of things to share with you about this subject. We're talking about how to rebuild family bonds for a joyous and relaxed holiday season. And this is over the past 4 years or so, this has been, no, it's been longer. It's been longer than that. Over the past 5 or 6 years, families have been struggling with a number of things. And I mentioned some of those in the intro, right? I talked about strained relationships. I've talked about conflict. I talked about past hurts. I even mentioned current attitudes and how they're all coming to dinner. They're coming to holiday dinner. They're coming with your family members. It's not the family members, it's the baggage that the family members are carrying that can cause a lot of dissension in families. And so, over the past 6 years or so, it's been a struggle for families to talk. It's been a struggle for families to communicate. It's been a struggle for families to even come together without arguing, bickering, falling out. Some even try to fight, right? We don't have that in our family. We're not fighting each other. Now, we may disagree, but we're not going to fight. We're not coming to blows over that. It doesn't make sense to. But we need a plan to help us to rebuild those relationships, because let's face it, we are healthier when we are a part of a supportive, cohesive community, and that starts with our families. We cannot we cannot make it through a lot of what's going on in the world right now unless we are together, and we are together in a strong way. So, I wanted to share with you some information about how you can start to rebuild some of those family bonds. I think it's important for us to know that our families are really the foundation of who we are. We are who we are because of our families, right? Um, because of what we've learned in our families, because of some of the difficulties we've experienced in our families. And I want to say that not all families are healthy families. I need to say that. I'm putting that out there. Not all families are healthy families, and not all families are based on biology. Just because you're born, you have the same mother or the same dad, um, sometimes those relationships are not family type relationships, and it's difficult to be in relationship. So I want to acknowledge that as I'm sharing this information. um, so if you have questions about that, just you can drop it in the comments, or just please comment. But I just want to make sure that you understand that I recognize that there are some families that, due to circumstances, um, often beyond anyone's control, they cannot be a cohesive unit, as I am encouraging. Okay. All right. So let's jump into our topic for today. The topic is 5 steps to rebuild family bonds for a joyous and relaxed holiday season. First and foremost, what causes strained relationships? What causes strained relationships? Strained relationships are those relationships in which we are able to interact and we talk, but there are feelings. There's a tension that's present. There's a tension that we feel and we express as we're communicating. So, what causes that? First of all, there may be a power differential, and that means that one person has influence over another person, or greater influence over another person. When that With that power differential, oftentimes the person who has that power may um, cause the other person to feel as if they are not able to express themselves or be who they are in the presence of that person. They must conform to that other person's wishes. So that power differential can be perceived or it can be actual. It can be a perceived power differential or it can be actual. So we want to be clear that power differentials can cause, whether they're perceived or whether they're actual, can cause strains in relationships. The other thing that can cause strains in relationships are cultural differences. Let's be real about that. Now, oftentimes when we think about cultural differences, we think about differences in terms of race. We think about differences in terms of region. We think of differences in terms of religious beliefs, right? Well, I want to go to just jump into families. Although you may be part of the same family, you may have different beliefs, right? You may have different ways of practicing your beliefs. You may have different behaviors, rituals, or traditions that are different from the family from which you come from. So we want to be aware that families can be different. And as an example, um, my family, the family that I was raised in, had different ways of doing things than my husband's family, the family that he was raised in. We had a lot in common. We had a lot in common, and we still do. We have a lot in common, but there were differences. So when we came together and we got married, we had to reconcile some of those differences. And we've been able to do that for almost 30 years. Um, so we just have to recognize that there are differences. Our daughter, who, our oldest daughter, who lives in her own apartment, has different ways of doing things as well. And I'm sure that when both of our daughters um, are completely on their own, and if they choose to marry and have a family, there are going to be some commonalities in how they carry out their family life with what they grew up in, but there are going to be differences because they are individuals. So, even within families, there are cultural differences that we don't often talk about. I talked about beliefs, practices, behaviors, rituals, and traditions, but also how we dress, our expression, our family structure, our values, our customs may be different from the family that we grew up in. So we want to recognize that when Uncle Joe and Aunt Betty come to dinner, their household customs may be different than the customs that I have in my own home. And those are sometimes things that cause strained relationships because we don't do things the same. We don't believe all the same things. We don't have the same rituals. It can cause strains. When our girls were very young, um, one of the things that we did when they were babies, like little, like toddlers, we would often go to my husband's his parents' home, and have Christmas there with them. It was joy. It was a joyful thing for them to have our little ones be at their home Christmas morning to open their gifts and their presents. When our children started getting older, my husband and I had a discussion about that, and I felt strongly that our children should open their gifts at home and they're in our home. My husband agreed with that and spoke with his parents, which I'm forever grateful about that. And so we would open gifts at our home, and then we would travel to his parents' home and we would have dinner there, and our girls had an opportunity to open gifts there. So that was just a difference in what we believed should happen, as well as a difference in what we our customs, right? That we had to meld together. So um, I just want to pause here and give you a moment to just think about those things and to think if there are some situations or customs or beliefs or rituals that you hold in your home that are different from your family. And how do you handle that? And if you'd like to share, feel free to pop that in the comment section. We'd love to hear about it. The second thing I'd like to take time right now is to make sure that you sign up for Get Through the Holidays Without Losing It. If you've not done so, we're going to have 30 days, 30 messages, and 30 activities to help you get through the holidays so that you can enjoy your family as well as your time during the holidays. Next, we want to talk about what causes conflict. And I'm just going to pop that in our ticker. You just give me a second. What causes conflict? Ooh, there we go. And boom. Let's do it this way. Here we are. Okay. So, what causes conflict? Um, well, think about it this way. When we have a difficult situation involving another person, oftentimes we avoid communicating that interaction was difficult. And sometimes what we'll do is, because we avoid it, um, we're avoiding it because we don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. We don't want to cause the other person pain, or we have attributed whatever has happened to a past hurt or trauma that we've experienced. When we do not communicate this, it it creates it creates an environment in which there is conflict and conflictual feelings. So avoidance is one aspect of conflict. Another aspect of conflict is when we respond defensively to something, or especially a misunderstanding, um, or we have a misunderstanding. So we may respond defensively, or we may have a misunderstanding as to what another person was trying to communicate with us. Um, Sometimes this defensiveness or this misunderstanding um, creates an environment in which we're blaming other people for how we feel, or we are in denial that it didn't bother me, but it really does, right? So we really have to be upfront and be able to communicate when we have experienced some type of hurt, or we need to ask questions for clarification if we don't understand, so that we are not harboring um, a misunderstanding. We're not harboring hurt feelings that are based on a misunderstanding. I think I think at one time I shared with you that my college roommate and I had a misunderstanding, and we each thought the other was angry with the other. I thought she was angry with me, and she thought I was angry with her. And we didn't talk for 2 weeks, which was crazy. However, it it occurred because we did not communicate. We didn't talk. When we finally talked to each other, what we found is it was so silly because, again, she thought I was angry with her and I thought she was angry with me. We could have avoided 2 weeks of not talking to each other if we had just confronted the situation or asked more questions at that time. So, conflict is caused by avoidance. It's caused by responding defensively or misunderstanding something that was said or done. It's also caused by having difficulty acknowledging harm. When we have experienced harm, um, it's not always acknowledged. Sometimes harm is unintentional. It was an accident. It wasn't intended. It was just something that happened, and a person can apologize for it. But then there are people who have a hard time acknowledging responsibility for causing harm, or they refuse to accept responsibility for causing harm to another. So even if you were to speak to them and say, hey, that hurt my feelings, they may have an excuse for it. They may say, oh, well, I didn't intend to do that. Or, well, I was just saying. Or, well, I don't know why you felt that way. Right? It's an inability to seek understanding. All of this I'm talking about is about communication. We can rebuild relationships if we talk to each other and not talk at each other, but if we talk to each other. And I'm going to give you the 5 steps which illustrate what I'm talking about. Talking to each other. Number 1, the first step to repairing the relationship. First, you want to acknowledge. You want to acknowledge what you're feeling. Describe it. Describe what you noticed. Describe what you felt. Because we know when we can sense that something's wrong. Either a person's countenance has changed or there was a change in the energy in the room. There was something that caused the energy to just plummet. And so acknowledge it. Just acknowledge that. Acknowledge that, hey, something's different. Hey, is something going on? You know, you've been a little different lately. Can we talk about it? You want to acknowledge. The next thing is once you acknowledge it and the conversation starts, listen. I've said this before. We have 2 ears for a reason. Let me turn this way. There's one ear, here's the other ear. We have 2 ears for a reason. Listen and listen non judgmentally. We have a habit of listening, but listening so that we can develop our response to what's being said, or we can think of a comeback before the person's finished. We want to listen without judgment, just hear what they're saying, and then take a moment to develop a response. So, first is acknowledgement. Second thing is describe your intention. If someone confronts you and says, hey, you hurt my feelings, describe that what your intention was. And this is something that's short and sweet. It shouldn't be some long, drawn out explanation, and it should not sound like an excuse. We don't want to excuse the behavior. We don't want to downplay the the pain or the hurt it caused, we want to say, hey, I didn't intend to do that. But remember that um, saying you didn't intend to do it really doesn't justify the outcome. You just want to say, I didn't mean to do that, right? The next thing is apologize. I apologize for things that I probably don't even have to apologize for, but I do. Why? Because it opens a door. It's like ringing a doorbell or knocking. It opens a door. An apology opens a door. When my college roommate and I were going through that 2 weeks, I came to her and said, hey, whatever I did, whatever I said, I apologize. I am sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I don't know what it was, but I apologize. And she said, you didn't do anything. I thought I did something, right? So an apology goes a long way. We don't have to apologize if we're not sure of what it is. We can just say, I regret what happened. Regret means regret is an emotion that a person experiences when they think that whatever they've done, whatever behaviors they've carried out, if they had done it differently, the outcome would have been different. Hey, I regret doing that. And this is a key. I want to share this with you. When you apologize, you can say, I regret a, a specific behavior. I learned to, instead of doing what I did, I can do this step, I can do this behavior instead. And the next time, I'm going to do this behavior. So it's similar to the I statements that we use, but this is about an apology. I regret a specific behavior. I learned to, and you can put that specific behavior in there. And the next time I will do a specific behavior. So I'm actually going to put that in the chat on the post so that you can see that. So, how do you repair relationships? Number one, acknowledgement. Number two, describe your intention. What did you intend to do? Third, apologize. Fourth, be curious, learn, seek to understand. I said that earlier. Seek to understand the hurt that was caused and what you need to do instead to prevent it from happening again. And then finally, offer reconciliation. I regret specific behavior. I learned to specific behavior. And next time I will specific behavior. You want to reconcile. Extend compassion, loving kindness, and practice gratitude. Be grateful for the family that you have. All family members, we all have our stuff, right? We all have the things that we're dealing with on a day to day basis. We all have opinions, right, wrong, indifferent. You may agree, you may not agree, but we are all individuals. But as family that is accustomed to coming together, family that's accustomed to sharing bonds, family that's accustomed to sharing experiences. We want to be able to rebuild those bonds so that we can have a joyous, relaxed holiday season. So, we've talked about the 5 steps to rebuild those family bonds. We talked about what causes a strained relationship, what causes conflict in a relationship, and we went over the 5 steps to rebuild. Well, that's all for now. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I'll see some of you on the 1st, or at least you'll see me in video on the 1st as I share the first day of Get Through the Holidays Without Losing It. I'm Marcyline Bailey. As always, take good care. I'll get to it in a minute. See y'all.